Brock Purdy about to break the bank in the 2025 offseason. Reports on a potential market-setting deal, but conflicting reports as well about where Brock Purdy will land amongst quarterbacks and how much he will be paid. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers and appreciate all the new listeners jumping in, hanging out with us daily throughout the season. And make sure you tune in the offseason as well. Plenty of draft talk. No playoffs, it looks like, this year for the 49ers. 1% chance, but if they're there, we will see you there daily. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to this podcast. And today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right, Croc, here we go. The offseason starting a little early. There's some games to play, and as Nick Bosa put it, we're going to find out who really wants to be here over the next 3 weeks of the NFL season. And so we're going to cover those games. We're going to have our our normal pre-games, post-games, keys to victory, and all that. So we're not ending the season early, but we're starting to take a little peek into the future here, Croc. And so are members of the media as it pertains to the San Francisco 49ers. And a couple of conflicting reports this weekend that I find fascinating about Brock Purdy and what kind of contract he might get. He's going into his contract year, and in my opinion, he's not going to play for whatever the 900,000, 1.1 million, whatever his fourth year of his rookie 7th round contract is. And Tom Pelissero was on with Rich Eisen, and he talked about what it might look like for Brock Purdy and a contract. And he said that Brock Purdy was looking to set the market at quarterback. We're talking $60 million. And that he's a player that deserves to be paid right in line with the top players at his position, and expect a massive contract this offseason for Brock Purdy. And, and if you're resetting the market, that means you're going to make more than what Dak got, right? And so we're starting to talk about $60 million per year with a contract like that. And in fact, ESPN's Bill Barnwell said he predicted something like 5 years, $325 million, which is $65 million per year for Brock Purdy. So breaking the $60 million per year barrier on a contract for Brock Purdy. Now, there's a lot of ways that a contract can be structured, but when you're talking about $325 million, there's going to be a lot of guarantees in there, and it's going to be a lot of money per year, even in the years at the beginning of the contract if you are backloading it. So it's going to be a massive deal, an expensive contract, and you're making a big portion of the 49ers salary cap if you're Brock Purdy, if you're going to start approaching 60 or breaking over the $60 million per year barrier. And that would put him at the highest paid player in NFL history if he signed a contract like that this offseason. So that comes from a couple of well-placed members of the media, some plugged-in members of the media, Croc. And before I get your thoughts on that, I think I know where you stand somewhat on Brock Purdy and what kind of contract would make sense for the 49ers going forward, and where Brock Purdy should be amongst his peers at quarterback. Greg Papa was on 49ers post-game and on TV side of things. He's the radio play-by-play voice of the 49ers. And he said something very different about Brock Purdy and what he might get paid. He said, paraphrasing here, that he may get somewhere around 50, maybe less $million per year, but they'll work out a number that makes sense for Brock and it makes sense for the San Francisco 49ers. And then Tim Ryan, his partner, the color guy on that play-by-play tandem for the 49ers radio, he was on KMBR on Monday, and he said something very similar. And he didn't make it sound like it was going to be a market-setting deal for the 49ers to sign Brock Purdy, and they would make something and they would do something that makes sense. He basically paraphrased exactly what Greg Papa said. And I find it fascinating, Croc, because those are two very different things. And I'll put it to you now. those are the reports we have. And to me, it's pretty obvious that Greg Papa works with the team. He speaks to people in the building. His sources, if he has sources, unless he's just making it up and pulling that out of nowhere, his sources are people in the building that he talks to, which could be John Lynch, it could be Kyle Shanahan, could be Prog Marate, it could be Jed York, right? Could be people in the building and what they think about the situation. And Tom Pelissero, as we know, for a lot of people who are the news breakers at ESPN, at NFL Network, and they get a lot of their information from the agent side of things. So what we have, Croc, potentially brewing in the 2025 offseason is a good old-fashioned standoff. And we're talking $10, $15 million, $20 million per year difference in those two reports. We saw what it looks like for a contract when the 49ers are negotiating a difference of $2 million per year. What about 10 times that per year? If the 49ers want this number, Brock Purdy's agent's asking for this number, we might need to buckle up for this thing.
First thing, I don't believe, I'm not saying that I don't believe Tim Ryan and Greg Papa. I definitely believe them, but I'm not listening to their reports on what it potentially might be as it pertains to something like almost like team friendly. Like get out of here. They're definitely hearing that from inside the building, and they're hearing something right. Like they're hearing that, but they're hearing it from the wrong people. Go talk to Brock Purdy's agent, and if he comes back to you with those numbers, hey, I talked to his agent, and they're thinking this. Then it's all right. Okay, I believe you. But anything coming from the 49ers, they can be hopeful of that. I don't think it's going to be record-setting, $50 million. If I'm Brock Purdy, why the heck am I going to take $50 million? Why am I going to take less than Tua? Why am I going to take less than Trevor Lawrence? I'm not taking less than Dak Prescott. Like, why would I take less than them? So from that perspective, I'm not listening to Papa and them. I don't even think there's a way to make that sound good to me if I'm Brock Purdy. Like, how can you sweeten me up enough to make it sound good to pay me less than guys I feel like I'm better than? And guys that have already been paid. Like, Tua was a top 5 pick or number 5 overall or 6 overall. Who's somebody else we just named?
Herbert's up there.
Herbert, but I mean, Herbert, he's gonna get his pay. But even then, Herbert, top pick, what, 7th overall, whatever it was, 6th overall.
I think Tua and Herbert were 5-6 back to back. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these guys that he's talking about right now, like those guys, Trevor Lawrence, he was a number 1 overall pick. He got paid. So it's like this dude already has a $36 million head start on me. And now I'm supposed to take less than him. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. So now anybody in any walk of life, you want what you're deserved of, right? Like, you want the money that you should get. If I'm not producing at a certain level, then okay, don't pay me at that level. But if I'm producing at a certain level, or I have, then I'm going to need what's comparable to these guys. And if I'm him, I want more. Now, you start off just saying, on Croc, I think he would take a little bit, or you know where you think that you know where I stand on this, and where I do stand is Trevor Lawrence, Tua, some of these guys. I would not have paid them that. Now, the issue is I don't know what you do. So this is, as a general manager, you have to figure out what's the best course of action to, figure this whole thing out. But I know I wouldn't have wanted to pay Tua that money. So that's what people are going, oh, well, the market says this. It does. So he's probably, I'll give him a 90% chance of getting $55+ million per year. If I had to guess, the 49ers, they're going to just pay that. But if I'm the GM, I wouldn't want to pay that. As a fan, pay them whatever. Tell all these dudes, get their bread. Whatever the team is willing to pay you, get that. If the 49ers are willing to pay Brock Purdy $65 million a year, then get Brock Purdy $65 million a year. But if I'm the general manager, I just would not be comfortable paying him that amount of dollars, especially with what I've seen from him this year. And I'm not saying that wasn't a very adverse situation. You're dealing with injuries, you're dealing with tragedy in families, in homes, you're dealing with the player getting shot, Christian McCaffrey never healthy. Like, you're dealing with a lot. But I didn't see him help the situation. I didn't see him do anything that made it say, this is what's going on with everybody else. But you know what? One person I can rely on that's going to, at the very least, kind of pull his weight at some point is going to be Brock Purdy. And I didn't quite get that sense. You did have some games. Look, we could just talk about last game. Offensively, you scored 6 points. Injuries and all, I feel like you got George Kittle out there. You got Jawan Jennings out there. You know, Debo, not himself right now, but you got a first-round pick, Ricky Pearsall. I think as a quarterback, if you're this guy, we're going to pay $55, $60 million, you have to figure out a way to score more than 6 points. I don't care if there's a drop or anything like that, but those things happen in games. Why do I only have 6 points? So because I've seen enough instances of that where like either poor decisions or poor throws in key moments down the stretch in these games, I think someone told me earlier the 49ers are 2-5 in one-score games this season. That would make me a little reluctant to pay him that amount. If you're losing games, Josh Allen, I talked about it. He just lost a game last week where the team put up 42 points, 6 touchdowns. He scored 6 touchdowns. Him, 3 rushing, 3 passing, over 400 whatever yards of total offense between throwing and rushing. And you lose that game, I'll live with my quarterback having that kind of performance. Yesterday, Jared Goff in the game against Josh Allen, who's just on a heater right now. But Jared Goff puts up 42 points, throws 5 touchdown passes, no turnovers, no picks, no fumbles lost, none of that. And you lose, then it's like, all right. But it's like 6 points. I just can't, I can't get down with that. And when you look at just weapons in general, like, who is Josh Allen playing with to where it's like, oh, well, hey, you got injuries, so you got to deal with this. And now your lack of offense or production is justified because injuries. We don't even know who the hell Josh Allen's playing with. And Brock's not Josh Allen. But I'm just saying, just from the standpoint of like what it looks like for a guy that you want to pay whatever and a guy where you might just be a little reluctant to pay whatever, which I think ultimately the 49ers still may have to do.
All right, more on the QB market. Where is that sweet spot for Brock Purdy? Because we just named a lot of quarterbacks there. And is he going to make more money than all of those guys in the 2025 offseason when he signs his next contract? And what should be the plan of action for the 49ers this offseason? We'll talk draft a little bit as well next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, right? And it's the perfect gift. Tickets to a live event. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks, and that makes getting those tickets even easier to live events. When we're talking football games, basketball games, any sort of concerts, comedy shows, any of it. And Game Time Picks helps you filter through the fluff, so it only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through potentially thousands of tickets, depending on the venue of the event you want to go see. Fantastic views from your seat before you buy. You know what it's going to look like on the app. Lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And my favorite feature at Game Time, it's the all-in pricing. Toggle on the all-in pricing feature. Shows you total upfront so you don't get surprise fees at checkout. Phenomenal last-minute deals as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. This episode is also presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action right now with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to bet on live NFL games, all in one place. You want to bet on the college football playoffs? Yeah, you can do that too. How about NBA, NHL? Tons of weekly props, draft props in the NFL as well. Tons of ways to play. Every sport imaginable, you can get in on that action. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So download the app or go to FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, Croc, you just named a lot of names there. And potentially this offseason, if you believe the Pelissero report, and Brock Purdy sets the market. That means he's making more money than Josh Allen. He's making more money than Patrick Mahomes. He's making more money than Lamar Jackson. Let alone the Goffs and the Tuas and the Herberts and the Trevor Lawrences. Do you really think that he's going to reset the market? If you had to guess, do you think that the 49ers and Brock Purdy's agent, he could say he wants to set the market, and the 49ers could say, yeah, we'd rather pay you 50 or 45 or whatever. Do you think he inks $60+ million per year contract annual value? We're talking 5 years, 300 and something million dollars.
Yeah, I do. And I think part of it has to do with kind of a flawed system in the NFL where the next guy up, he's just going to get paid. And he's going to, at the very least, be close to some of the other guys, but more than them. So I really feel like for him, again, I know you said reset, it may be roughly 60 million. But again, the guys that he will be slightly ahead of, or maybe 5 million more per year ahead of, I would not have wanted to pay those guys that amount of dollars. And I think that's where the NFL, they kind of have this kind of flawed thing where it's just because you're up next to get paid, now you're going to get X amount of dollars more than these other guys. I kind of like what they do in the NBA. The NBA, they get a lot of stuff wrong. But one thing that I do like is the more accolades you have, the more you're able to get paid. So, if you're first team all NBA or second team all NBA, you are eligible for a certain amount of contract that guys that aren't getting those accolades, they're not capable of reaching. And I know these things are voted on by the media and the press and all that, but I like that aspect of it because at least it's like I'm truly, voted as a top 1 or 2 players at my position. So if I get the most amount of dollars that's available at that moment, cool, because that's the level I played at. But if you're not kind of in that range, and they have, one, first team, second team, third team, I think in the NBA. NFL, maybe you just go off of first and second team. But if you're in that range, then you're eligible for a different amount of money than guys that aren't. And I feel like that would kind of help keep things from getting out of control and maybe, kind of potentially hurting teams from being able to build around them.
Yeah, make it easier for teams to keep their stars. And it's like, look, he's going to get a max contract. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the next item, right? And you don't have to go through an entire 8 months of negotiations to try to hammer out a contract like that. So I'm with you on that. Yeah, the economics of the NFL is really weird because the guy who's quarterbacking a team in the Super Bowl shouldn't make $900,000 either, right? Like Brock Purdy deserves a lot of money just for what he's already done. He's given the 49ers so much surplus value, even in the short time that he's been their quarterback. And so that's not right. $60+ million for Brock Purdy, that doesn't feel right for me either. Like Brock Purdy right now is 19th in the NFL in touchdown passes. And he's going to make more money than all those guys. For Josh Allen's agent, if I'm John Lynch and Josh Allen's agent slides over a number that's more than a recent contract that's signed by Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, that just seems wrong to me. I don't know. And so
Brock Purdy's agent.
Brock Purdy's agent, right? Yeah, Brock Purdy's agent. And just it seems very strange, and that's just the way things go. And whoever's up next gets the most money that's ever been paid in a human being ever in the world, right? So we'll see, and that's kind of what I expect to happen. And talking about reports, Diana Rossini, who's really plugged in and always really good with her reporting of The Athletic, she said, call it a Super Bowl runner-up hangover or just a down season, but the 49ers are sticking to their plan, betting on Purdy and Shanahan and hoping the skies clear soon. So, Shanahan's safe. The plan is to pay Purdy right now. Maybe they're far apart, but if the 49ers believe they'll get Purdy for $50 million or less, and the agent believes he's going to get $60 million or more, we're talking $10+ million per year. That's a sizable gap that they're going to have to close. And we've seen how hard it is for the 49ers to close some of these gaps in negotiations. And if we're reading the tea leaves and we're believing reports, I think that's where we're at. I think there's going to be a pretty big gap of what the offer and what the ask is going to be when they first hit the negotiating table this offseason. And
you know what they should do? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, we'll go into the next segment here. And basically, I think we got to ask the question, okay, so where is Brock Purdy? How good is he? Can the 49ers live without him? and what could be the strategy if it's like, oh man, that's just too far. We can't go there. And he's not going to play without that money, and they're not going to go there. What would that look like?
I think what teams should do in the NFL would have to structure this a certain way. And this is how I feel like can potentially get the money from getting crazy for a quarter. Now, again, I want to preface this by saying, I said, if pay Brock Purdy, whatever, right? If I'm, as a fan of football, I want players to get as much money as they can get out of these guys, because these owners and stuff, they're getting paid. So pay them whatever. But, if I were running the team, so I'm speaking more from that perspective. If I'm like GM or something, I have a team to build and I'm looking at Purdy and, what we should do. I would say this. The NFL needs to adopt something to where, and I'm talking about all these different ways to kind of put some kind of cap on the money they're getting or lessen it to where it doesn't get out of control. Kind of like they did with the draft. They kind of restructured it to where, what was it? Sam Bradford got like $70 million as a rookie.
When Vernon Davis was drafted in the top 10, he became the highest paid tight end of all time on his rookie contract.
Right. So that's ridiculous. And they figured out a way to reshape that to where it's not out of control in that way. I think something that the NFL should try to do and adopt, and I'm saying all these things to kind of lessen some of the money. I'm thinking more so from Eric Crocker, general manager, not Eric Crocker fan, because hey, every player should get as much money as you can get, as much money as the NFL is willing to pay you. All right. But as Eric Crocker, the GM, how can I figure out a way to make it to where I'm not paying a quarterback an astronomical amount that exceeds what they really are? Right. And I'm talking about guys like Tua. Tua, solid quarterback, solid starting quarterback. And I'm pretty sure Miami's like, yeah, I like Tua. I don't know if we like him at $55 million a year, right? Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Yeah, we really like Dak Prescott. They never won NFL MVP, right? But I don't care about any of that. We watch him. I don't know if I like him at $60 million per year. So when I look at Brock Purdy, yeah, I really like Brock Purdy. My conversation about him is, I don't know if I like him at $60 million. Right. So how do you get around that? Because everybody talks about the market and the next guy up. Could the NFL potentially say, you know what? Let's make it to where any quarterback that is up for a contract, he can quote unquote test free agency. So what you do is say, all right, Brock Purdy's up for a contract. We want to start negotiations, but you kind of put it out there to the NFL, like let's say prior to the season that they're going to get a new contract in, or after the season, however you do it. But you put it, you basically make him available for teams to offer contracts to. So
like
if there's other teams, well, essentially like a franchise tag. But if there's other teams, but you're not tagging them because you plan on potentially keeping them.
Right.
So you make it to where, all right, Brock Purdy's out there. Teams that are looking for a quarterback, right? Let's say the Las Vegas Raiders. They can say, all right, we'll pay him $55 million per year. Or $60 million per year, whatever they want. We'll just throw a number out there. $58 million. The Raiders offer a $58 million per year contract to Brock Purdy. And then if you're the 49ers, because he currently is on your team, you have the option to match it. So it's like those tender things that they do with guys, and you could just match whatever somebody offers. Do that for quarterbacks. Now, as long as you match it, you keep your guy. And there's no hard feelings. We want to get you the most money that you're valued at. But if the Raiders come in at, okay, we'll offer $51 million. And then there's another team, I don't even know who to throw out there. The Seattle Seahawks. They're like, oh, well, we'll pay him $57 million, right? Well, all right, whatever the highest number is, 49ers, you have the opportunity to match it. And if it exceeds what you want to pay him, then you let him go and he has to go to that team. So they have to offer a real contract, what they're really willing to pay him, because they'll get stuck with him if the team that he's currently on doesn't want to match it. And I think that would kind of keep things down, because I'm going to be honest, I don't know what Purdy would get if he hit the open market.
So that's where I'm at. And that's genius, Croc, because that's what I think I would do if I was in John Lynch's position when it came to Brock Purdy. I want to get into that next. And my question would be, okay, if he's the $60 million guy, who would pay that? And what would that actually mean in that door number 2 scenario for the 49ers in the upcoming offseason? We'll get to that next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by TNT College Football Playoffs. It's that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever. bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of college football playoffs begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into the first matchup, which is SMU, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs, battling Penn State, and then the Clemson Tigers look to upset Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. So if Brock Purdy is a reset the market quarterback, Croc, then that would mean every quarterback team, needy team in the NFL would want a piece of that. They would want that guy. Sharks, it'd be like chum in the water for Sharks. Like, imagine if Josh Allen was a free agent, right? Every team, even teams that have a quarterback, would say, yeah, I want some of that Josh Allen, right? That's the type of player where you say, okay, he's on the trade market. Teams are like 2 first-round picks. Here you go, 3 first-round picks, right? And we'll pay him the money. That's what a market-setting quarterback should be and would be. So the 49ers could do the thing they did with DeForest Buckner, and that's what I would do. Say, okay, look, we're far apart, and this is day one of negotiations. We're not going to take this thing and have you holding out on September 1st. Go find it. You have permission to seek a trade. You can talk to anybody you want now, right? He goes around, finds out, oh, New York Giants, $57 million. That's our best offer. Look, Giants are willing to give up pay $57 million. Okay, are they going to give us 2 first-round picks and pay $57 million, right? Are they going to pay $65 million? Would he really find that money? And I can't wrap my head around free agent Brock Purdy making $65 million. And that's kind of and when we talk about market, that's literally the market. The market is what you would make on the open market if you were available to all teams. I don't think Brock Purdy makes $65 million. So you don't even have to go to free agency, and you're going to demand the highest dollar from the team you're already at without even seeing what the rest of the league's willing to pay. And on top of that, a top of the market quarterback should get you multiple draft picks.
Right.
So you're talking about, okay, would you rather have Brock Purdy at $60 million per year? Or would you rather have Sam Darnold in first-round picks for half as much money per year, right? That's an easy decision for me, but I don't think that's reality. I think if you said, Brock Purdy, you are a free agent, you're willing to, you can talk to any team you want. I don't think it's $60 million. So how can you demand that from the 49ers? That's where I'm at. And I think if a team actually really like Brock Purdy, wanted to sign him, I think he'd get a lot of money, right? But they'd still be like, okay, here's a second-round pick Niners, and we're going to sign him for 53, maybe. And that's like max, I think, to me, what he would actually get on the open market. That's what I think the market is for Brock Purdy. I think, and I like him as much as Tua. And if he demands more than Tua by $1, I totally get that. But again, like you said, I'm with you. I don't know if I would have paid Tua what Tua got. And I don't know how many teams would be knocking down Brock Purdy's agent's door to give him $60 million. So if you're talking markets, is that really the market for Brock Purdy?
So that's the big question. I think you have to look at it. There's obviously a couple of different ways. He has done an amazing job for the 49ers. But one question that I asked, or our preference, I believe right after the game that the 49ers just played on Thursday night, I said, how am I judging Brock Purdy? Am I judging Brock on the last pick in the draft making $1 million per year right now? Or am I judging Brock Purdy on potentially getting $60 million per year and being the highest paid quarterback in the league? Because how I'm viewing him is drastically different based on that conversation. And that's not to say that he hasn't done some terrific things. But we've kind of seen this with 49er quarterbacks. The longer you see somebody play, the more you're gathering information. And there was a time where Eric Crocker thought the world of Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I thought, 49ers got a franchise quarterback. Look at this guy. He's a great leader. Okay, he does these, he does that. If you look at a lot of his stats, especially from that 5-0 run to start the season, right, when they made him the highest paid quarterback in the league, or highest paid player in the league ever at that time, you look at his numbers from there, and I remember seeing it and being like, this is why you pay a guy like this. All the 49ers numbers went from like really bad to number 1 and number 2 in the entire NFL during that stretch of games, those 5 games that Jimmy Garoppolo started. I'm talking about yards per drive, points per drive, yards per throw, like all these different metrics. It had Jimmy sky high. And obviously he got hurt, and then he came back, and you saw him start to get back into that groove middle of the season. And again, he's doing a lot of really good things, playing very well. And then the more you watch him, it's just kind of like, okay, the honeymoon has kind of gone away, and I see who he is. And that's not a bad quarterback. You know, I thought he did a lot of good things for the 49ers. And like he works for the Niners. But there's some things missing here. And his players are like, oh, no, we love him. He's amazing. He's the world's greatest leader. And they always talked about him, his leadership and all these things. But watching him, eye test showed me that, you know, there's some things where I would like to improve on. But even regardless of that, look at his numbers. Look at this. He's top 5 in all these categories. He's really good for the 49ers. So, all right, whatever. But my expectations kind of dropped for what I thought Jimmy can potentially be. And I think with Brock Purdy, I'm not saying it's dropped as far. Like, I think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. So 49er fans, you're listening right now. Don't say, oh, Eric Crocker. I think Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy. I don't know how much better. And I'm talking about 49er Jimmy, not Jimmy that went to the Raiders and back up for the Rams. I'm talking about 49er Jimmy and how he played during his, you know, the full 2 seasons that he, you know, when he played every game and all that. And Brock Purdy, what I've seen to this point, Brock is better. How much better is he? And I think because of that, when you start talking about open market, I think once we start to see the full scope of, you know, Brock, Jimmy wasn't healthy because Jimmy played games hurt too. Finger, shoulder, all kind of weird stuff going on. And it was like, it started to look a little weird. With Brock, I'm starting to have these thoughts of really, he's a good quarterback. He's a good starting quarterback. But I don't know if I'll ever see him like when I watched even golf the other day, or when you watch Josh Allen and you watch Mahomes in big moments. We've seen special Mahomes, but now just Mahomes that figures out a way to win every game, right? I'm seeing a lot of these guys, you know, I'm like, but Brock's not that. So he's something less than that, but everybody would want that. But you need a quarterback, and you need a starting quarterback. So how do you pay him? And again, I would just have a tough time paying him like I would pay some of these other guys, especially after seeing, you know, you can go back. Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick got paid a lot of money at one point. And I remember people, the league, they're starting to catch up with him. You know, they start to kind of, you know, it took a little while, it took a couple years, but once they figured it out, you know, they figured it out. And I wish I could have a conversation with defensive coordinators right now on like, how do you truly feel about Brock?
Well, I know they're not afraid of 49ers beating them deep. He was 0 for 8 against the Rams on deep balls. The 49ers don't have a lot of speed and a lot of players that are built to win that way either. So I think that's part of it. I think that makes it a little bit easier for defense coordinators to say, okay, well, we know we can play forward a little bit. And maybe we'll get one popped over the top if we're not really paying close enough attention to that. But we're not afraid of that. And
how much more will you pay him than Jimmy? Like if we're saying prime Jimmy when he was really good for the 49ers and they're winning all these games, Brock Purdy, prime Brock Purdy, and they're winning all these games. What do you think that money difference is? Do you think it is a difference of, you know, in a current market for money?
Right.
Is it a $10 million difference? Is it a $5 million? If it's a $20 million difference per year, like what is that difference between prime Jimmy? And when I say Jimmy, everybody thinks that they always look at like Jimmy sucks. And it's like, he did a lot of really good things for the 49ers. And I think Brock is better. How much better? So like, what do you think that money gap is based on what those two guys you saw in very similar situations?
It's tough because better than Jimmy, there's a lot of space up there, especially with what we know about Jimmy now. If we're saying, okay, Jimmy 2017, when he got that contract, Brock's better than that. And I think he is. In today's money, I don't know what that is, $10 million per year or something.
Well, he was made the highest paid quarterback in the league.
Right. Right. And it's 20, like, quarterback money's exploded since then too. So it was a different percentage of the salary cap back then than it is now. We're talking about a quarter of the cap, like 25% of the salary cap for a quarterback.
So let's say that Jimmy was in the current market, let's say they paid him $45 million.
Okay. I don't know. That's where I think Brock should be, to be honest with you. Like I think Brock should be in the Baker Mayfield contract neighborhood, not the Lamar Jackson contract neighborhood. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't pay Jimmy Garoppolo $45 million in his prime, but we kind of know where Jimmy Garoppolo ended up. So that's what makes this really difficult. I don't think it's easy. I think I have a really good feel of who Brock Purdy is, and that's a really good quarterback. It's just not elite. And I don't think that's a reset the quarterback market player. I think it hurts your franchise to do that.
Now, here, hold on. I got to say something, okay? You just brought up Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
And I think there might be people that scoff at the thoughts of Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they finally got Mike Evans back, and he had a huge game, but they've been playing without a lot of games without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin, who's out for the year. Mayfield he completed 22 out of 27 passes for 288 yards, 4 touchdowns against the Los Angeles Chargers, beat them 40-17. So are we saying we pay him in the Baker neighborhood because Brock is capable of having that kind of game? And I think he is. But then you see some of the other moments where there's a lot of space in between the kind of game that he's able to have. So because of that, it's like, you know what? You're more in the Baker category. Now, again, he could be more consistently better than that if he has everybody. But Baker, I mean, if you just ask the average 49er fan, how many players can they name on Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And they're 8-6.
They're going crazy right now, and Baker's on a heater right now. Baker has twice as many touchdown passes as Brock Purdy. Baker has 32 touchdown passes right now, third in the NFL behind Burrow and Lamar, right ahead of Goff and Darnold and Josh Allen. That's where he's at. Like Brock Purdy's numbers aren't even there this year. Like last year, yeah, but this year it's 15 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Reset the market.
What they're going to say because of the injuries, but I would counter that with Baker's had injuries.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. He lost both of his top wide receivers at one point. Now Mike Evans is back, and Mike Evans doing Mike Evans things still. But Brock Purdy also had the best weapons last year when he played amazing. So it's probably somewhere in the middle, right? But there's no middle class for free agent quarterbacks. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there needs to be the market reset needs to be that there needs to be a middle class of quarterbacks. And right now it's Geno and Baker Mayfield, and that's it. Maybe Sam Darnold becomes that this offseason too. I think Brock should be in there, the Kirk Cousins of the world, like those guys. Like there needs to be a middle class of quarterbacks because not everybody's elite and should get paid the Lamar Jackson money just because they're a quarterback, just because they're the next guy up. Well, Brock Purdy,
and just because they play well.
What's that?
Like I said, and just because they play well, okay, you play well, that doesn't mean you should be the highest paid. And again, I'm speaking from the perspective of building a team. Like if I'm trying to build a team and how much I should play this quarterback that potentially is going to handicap how I can maneuver and move around, I have to be strategic with that. That's when I really like Brock. Again, we just talked about Baker. I think that's really good. Like that's a story not talked about enough. A guy who has faced adversity, faced injuries, has a team 8-6 even throughout those injuries, right? Like I feel like that's a very realistic kind of situation. And he's just figuring out ways to keep his team afloat. Like they're in the playoff conversation. The 49ers are not.
We're talking about like Brock Purdy's really good. We're talking about Brock Purdy getting a contract that is 50% more total dollars than the highest contract they've ever given out to any player in franchise history. And that's the low end contract we're talking about. That's not even the $325 million contract we're talking about, right? I mean, so this is a massive contract, and being $10 million per year apart is pretty big in the 49ers. That's, if we're reading the tea leaves, that's where the Niners and Brock Purdy's agents are going to start this offseason. So I think that's a buckle up scenario. I mean, I do find it hard to believe that the Niners would be like, all right, cool, Brock, here we go. $65 million per year, $325 million contract over 5 years. That sounds about right. I don't believe that's what the 49ers are going to do. I just don't think. Maybe they'll end up getting there. I don't know. And maybe we'll be shocked by the number. And the number always usually comes in bigger than we expect on most contracts. But again, he's not even a free agent. You're only negotiating with one team, and they're going to give you the most ever. And I don't think Brock's elite. And so we'll see if it comes to bite some of the teams. You know, will the Dolphins regret the Tua contract? We've seen the New York Giants regretted the Daniel Jones contract, and that was actually one of the few middle class contracts for quarterbacks in the NFL, and they even regretted that one.
But he was always like Brock has always been better than
Brock is better than that. But what I'm saying is the contract that you know is too much when you sign it.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, that was really, we're gonna do this, okay?
The Tua one always felt, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, Tua got what? That always felt like it was too much. If you'd have told me, oh, Tua got $43 million per year, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool for Tua. Okay. And now the expectations are towards a $43 million per year quarterback, as opposed to, oh, you're supposed to look like, you know, these other guys. You're supposed to look like, heck, Jordan Love. Jordan Love got paid about the same amount of money as Tua. And right now, I'd take Jordan Love right now.
And bottom line is, this is what, and we've got to go. We're going long already. We'll talk some more of the draft stuff later on in the week, and we got plenty of months to be talking NFL draft. But I've got some thoughts about the NFL draft and where the 49ers have been and where the 49ers are right now going into the 2025 offseason. Is Brock Purdy the guy to elevate your franchise even when Debo is gone? And maybe Debo's kind of already washed. We'll see what ends up with him. When Christian McCaffrey, who might have hit that running back cliff, right? And no Trent Williams. Is Brock Purdy the guy to elevate that offense? And it's like, man, we're running this thing through Brock Purdy and we're going to the Super Bowl. We're still a Super Bowl caliber team. That's what you're telling me by resetting the market and paying him top of the market quarterback money. Is he that? The 49ers have to answer that question. And if he's not that, I think it's important for them to figure out a way to make it work. And that might mean doing something out of the box, like we've talked about. I do think the best strategy for the 49ers is to say, okay, go find that money. We'll see what the market is. Because you're already asking for the most. What's it going to be? Oh, it's still the most. Okay. You were right. You found it. And is that team willing to give up 2 first-round picks on top of it? Because that's what it should be for a reset the market quarterback, right? Am I crazy to think that?
That sounds about right to me.
Okay. It's going to be an interesting one. Let us know what you think at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. Drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there or anywhere you are listening to this podcast. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.